Hello, dear friends. A taking is a forcible conquest or occupation of a square or city. Opinion piece. The Great Taking. Is the end near? System collapse. Separatist society. Is this an exaggeration? Bubble bursting. Control system failure. Last gasp of globalism. Hybrid war against humankind. Let's start. There is another crazy prophet shouting in the street that the end is coming and that we are all going to die. But I only believe in the movies that have a happy ending. Every end has a beginning, and in this case, it is called a new era of peace, love, and harmony. This type of apocalyptic message is usually associated with the idea that some type of significant event or important change is approaching. It is often used in a humorous or satirical way, but can also be found in more serious situations. In more formal contexts, this type of message can refer to important events or changes, such as the end of an era or even a warning about possible negative consequences. It could suggest an expression of anguish, anxiety, or even expectation about the end of something. However, in popular culture, it is often used more lightly and as a way to express irony or exaggeration. New book. In recent weeks, a new book on the alternative scene has emerged that can be downloaded for free. There are signs that the financial system is getting closer to collapse. The control system is crumbling. The great taking is emerging as the last gasp of globalism. The book The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb says that they are going to take away even our shirts. At first glance, it seems like it's just another crazy man screaming that the end is near. But the problem is that the book is pretty well founded. The shocking documentary produced by David Rogers Webb, based on this book, on his own book, alerts us all to the preparations of privately controlled central banks for the unavoidable final financial collapse. David Morgan analyzes the current state of monetary system and warns that those unprepared for the net collapse will likely face financial difficulties. The Great Depression was a well-executed plan to seize assets, impoverish the population, and remake society. What came next was worse. Warren Buffett's famous quote rings true. In quotes, "You only find out who swims naked when the tide goes out." Most of us are about to learn that we are the one without clothes. Excuse the pessimism, but I still believe in a happy ending. Argument. What is this book about? It is about the taking of all guarantees, the end of the current supercycle of synchronous debt accumulation worldwide. This plan is being executed by a long-planned intelligent design, the audacity and the scope of which are difficult for the mind to comprehend. Included are all financial assets and bank deposits, all stocks and bonds, and therefore all underlying property of all public operations, including all inventories, plant and equipment, land mineral deposits, inventions, and intellectual property. Privately owned real and personal property financed with any amount of debt would also be taken, as well as assets of privately owned companies that have been financed with debt. If achieved, even partially, this would be the greatest conquest and subjugation in world history. The close, private control of all central banks, and therefore all money creation, has allowed very few people to control all political parties and governments, the intelligence agencies and their countless front organizations, the armed forces and the police, large corporations, and of course the media. These very few people are the main drivers. Their plans are executed for decades. Its control is opaque. To be clear, it is these very few people hidden from you who are behind this plan to confiscate all assets who are waging a hybrid war against humankind. A hybrid war refers to a type of conflict that combines different forms of aggression using both conventional and unconventional methods, where a wide range of tactics can be employed, including cyber warfare, propaganda, covert operations, disinformation, political and economic actions, as well as military operations. In a hybrid war, adversaries seek to exploit weaknesses and vulnerabilities in multiple dimensions, both inside and outside the military sphere, to achieve their strategic objectives. Financial reset. Here are a few lines to whet your appetite. In quotes, the financial system must be restarted so we can extend credit again, create jobs, and grow the economy whatever the cost. Here is the central bank digital currency deposited on your smartphone so you can buy milk. There are now no ownership rights over securities held in book entry form in any jurisdiction globally. Essentially, all securities held by the public in custodial accounts, pension plans, and investment funds are now encumbered as collateral that underpins the derivative complex, which is an order of magnitude larger than the entire world economy. So there is not enough of anything in the world to support it. I assure you that this is not the case. They would be very wrong if they call it a conspiracy theory, which is a common reaction. It is possible to really know. The documentation is irrefutable. My Aunt Elizabeth was 10 years old when the banks were closed by executive order in 1933. The people who had money in the banks that were not allowed to reopen lost everything. However, his debts were not cancelled, were assumed by the banks selected by the Federal Reserve System. Smart design. At the risk of oversimplifying it, the Great Taking wants that an unknown entity called the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation owns all the public traded companies in the world, and indeed all debt-based assets of any kind. It is about the taking of all guarantees, the end of the current super cycle of globally synchronous debt accumulation. This plan is being executed by a long-planned, intelligent design, the audacity and scope of which are difficult for the mind to understand. Included are all financial assets and bank deposits, all stocks and bonds, and therefore all underlying property of all public corporations, including all inventories, plant and equipment, lands, mineral deposits, inventions, and intellectual property. Privately owned real and personal property financed with any amount of debt would also be taken, as well as assets of privately owned companies that have been financed with debt. Throughout the book, the author describes a 50-year process through which ownership of shares in public company and all debt guarantees have been dematerialized. In the old days, you invested in a company, they gave you physical stock certificates, and then you were a part owner of the company. But we do not own small parts of these companies, but rise to those parts because over decades, share ownership has been supplanted by so-called security rights. Bubble burst. Webb suggests that when the debt supercycle culminated in its definitive explosion, the trap would be sprung and the clearinghouses would absorb the beneficial ownership of all these companies and assets. An infinitesimal proportion of the elite open would own everything, and the masses of the world would be reduced to servitude according to his hypothesis. This would be the big take, or rather the big joke. If that were to happen, it would mean the end of the global financial system as we know it, with society continuing as a world of penniless serfs, subordinate to approximately 0.001% of the elite. It would be more than the last gap for globalism that than a final takeover of the world. This is not because control power is rising, but because it is falling. The control system has collapsed. Its two great powers of deception, money and the media, have been very effective tools of control from an energetic point of view, but these powers are now in full collapse. That is why they have taken urgent measures to apply physical control measures. However, physical control is difficult, dangerous, and requires a lot of energy, and that's why they are risking everything. They run the risk of being seen. It is not a sign of desperation. Bifurcation. We already see the great fork happening around us. Tent cities, fentanyl zombies roaming the streets, growing masses of behaving like savages. This is not because of race, politics, religion, or some far reaching global conspiracy to impoverish humankind or depopulate the earth. These two accelerated dynamics conspire to create a true separatist society, where those who are positioned and have the cognitive capacity to lead technology live in the future, and the rest who cannot are left behind in the past. A separatist society is one in which a group of people seeks to separate or become independent from a larger political entity and from the main society in which they are inserted. This desire for separation may be motivated by ethnic, cultural, linguistic, religious, political reasons, or a combination of these. We may own some physical gold or silver for the same reason, and we may own property somewhere, farmland, or anything that we can physically claim, although we may find ourselves in a situation where we have to claim ours. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.